But there's one thing I want you guys to think about when you're choosing how to put highlights around the face.
I'm getting it for
So
you.
aside from how much depth you want as far as like a Rudy look, think about the face shape that you're putting it on. So usually we say like the perfect face shape is like a heart or an oval face shape. So if somebody comes in and they have a really long, skinny face, and you make it really blonde right here and really dark right here, you're gonna draw your eye upward and make their face look longer and skinnier, right? Same thing if you have somebody that has a really round face, and you make it really blonde right here, right next to their face, you're gonna draw their eye outward and make their face look even rounder. So when you're choosing how you put your highlights in, think about that a little bit, right? Think about, okay, do I want it to be really blonde right here? If you have like a 17-year-old with a perfect face shape, make it blonde wherever you want to make it blonde. But not everybody wants, when they pull their hair back, to have every single hair be super blonde. So when you're choosing the angle of your sectioning, think about that, right? If I take a diagonal forward section and I hold this back and I paint it, and then I hold this back and I paint it, I'm gonna make it really blonde right by their face, right? Because when I over direct this hair back, I'm exposing that front hairline. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if I don't wanna do that, what am I gonna do? Stand over here, take a diagonal back section, pull it forward, paint the top. So now you have lightness that lives through here, but it's not going to be really blonde right next to their face. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you might, on the bottom half, stand in front, over direct forward, so it all lives kind of on the inside. And on the top half, you might over direct back, because you want it to be blonde here and dark here to balance out a really round face, right? Sink this shape back, draw this shape out. You might do the opposite. Somebody has a really long skinny, you make it really blonde here, and then a little more rooted here, so it lights up here, draws your eye outward, but keeps this really low and sort of sinking from a color theory perspective. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So on this side, because this is the side that's sort of like V's and W's and a little rootier and all of that, let's stand in front, diagonal back, work that way, and then when we get to the top, I'll show you what I like to do for this hair that's spreading out all over everything to really get it close to the root, so on and so forth. So when you're coming to that side, just split it in half right at the parietal ridge, so we sort of have above the parietal ridge, below the parietal ridge. When you're coming to this section in front, you can do V's and W's the whole way up. You can switch it to do more of like a shadowed look. So I'm going to show you, this is where some freedom starts to happen. That's the name of our lightener too, that was funny. So this is where some freedom starts to happen for you guys. If you want to do all V's and W's up this side and do, I call it paddles, so it's like a full saturation to the root with a little angle. You want to do that only on this side, do that. Whatever you feel like, okay, I've got the V's and W's, I don't need to do that anymore, use the other technique. You want to blend them all three together, do that. So when I come here, I'm going to take a diagonal back section. How big your section is going to depend on the density of their hair and how much depth you want to retain, right, above or below your highlight. So this first one, let's keep a little more depth. I'm going to do like a V, but standing in front, right? If I over direct that back, I'm naturally going to lighten closer to their hairline. So I'm going to stand over here, paint this side. So you'll still have some highlight by their face, right? But it's not just a big panel. And then I'll come to this side, Now, usually you can do the side in 2, maybe 3 sections. It's not a very big portion, but taking that diagonal back will help create some movement on that flat panel. This flat panel, you do not see the stuff that goes all the way up to the root unless somehow this hair has all been cut to this length and it's sitting over this, right? So focus more about, do you want to leave some depth for when it opens up, or do you want it to feel very blonde all the way through, right? So the other sort of painting technique, aside from our V's, our W's, our highlight, all of that stuff, is when you want a really heavy amount of blonde, but you want to leave that little bit of a shadow, right? So whether it be that you have a root touch up on and you want to pull that down a little further back, or if you just want a peak with some diffusion toward the back. So this is where you really use the full side of your brush. Now, if you can't see, just move to a place that you can see. So I'm going to start down here. We're painting the whole surface. We're painting the whole surface of the section. And then all I'm doing is wherever I am closer to the hairline, I'm going to pull that up. So you have this nice diagonal back, but you still get a really big panel of blonde. See? This is, we were talking about, you know, how do you know whether you want to do a V or a W or a paddle or whatever? And at the end of the day, it completely depends on what you want your end result to be. Now, she had also asked, do you think it's easier to start painting with your V's and your W's? And I said, honestly, no. I think the easiest thing to paint is this little paddle right here. Because you don't have a lot of valleys in the section. It's a very smooth section on the top. So you don't have to worry about boogers getting inside this little hole where the lightener is sort of stuck. This, you can just paint it on the surface. The only thing that you're going to vary is where your peak is and where your valley is, right? So I could, when I pull this next section down, keep this as a paddle. I could make this a V, I could make this a W. It depends completely on what you want the hair to look like when it opens up, right? So if we're looking at my color and I really like to retain a lot of depth back here, I can do that same diagonal back section, but keep it much lower on one side. See? And if you know you're sort of like, I can't really get that angle, and you want to get that steep angle, what do you think you can do when you paint it?
Over directed forward.
Over directed forward. Right? So I'm going to pull this even more forward, stand super in front, and just paint a line, blended line, and then when it falls back, you have a really strong angle, right? So you can vary how deep you, I said that and literally all I heard in my head was how deep is your love? How deep you leave your angle for the full panel. And then I like to sort of bounce back and forth. Maybe I'll do a V here, a panel here, a W here. A V, a panel, right? So that's where you can really start to get the creative, how much depth do you want, how much brightness do you want? Remember, when you're working down here, this stuff will all sort of sink in, you don't see it a ton. It's this stuff on top that you really start to see. Do you guys want to see the top, or do you want to do this side first?
Side first.
Side first? Okay, let's do the side first.